Welcome to Las Vegas, Nevada, everybody. Sheldon Menery, Gavin Verhey here. Round 6 action, Grand Prix Las Vegas, Modern Masters 2013. On your left, Eric Froelich. On your right, Ben Friedman. Two pretty serious Magic players.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're both playing at the top of the game, have had a lot of accomplishments, and we're going to see some pretty good Magic being played here. And these decks look pretty solid, too. Eric Froelich piloting a white-blue-red deck. And looks like Ben Friedman has a red-green splash black deck, splashing for some removal spells. Ben's deck is very removal heavy. He's got a pair of Fiery Falls, two drag downs, a Glacial Ray, and he's got some good green fatties. And we were talking earlier about how we felt it was important, or how Sam Black felt that often you would have a green base in this format because you just have good creatures, and Ben is doing exactly that. He's got a giant Dusk Wasp, a Moldavine Cloak, 3 Spore Sower Thalids, two Thalid Germinators, a Thalid Shell Dweller, and of course the Trompe the Domains to finish it all off, plus some bombs in the form of Ryusei and a bunch of removal spells.
So whose idea was Thalids?
Thalids? I think that was turned over in design, actually. I'm not completely sure. Eric might have added that. Eric, when the set moved into development from design, Eric Lauer, absolute genius, took the set and just added in a lot of these really cool color pairs. And I can't remember if Thalids was there before or after, but I know within a week of development it was there. So Eric definitely loved the idea, and it just kind of stuck.
It looks like Ifro has mulliganed down to 5 in this first game.
Go.
So it's going to be it's a bit of a rough start for him, and he starts with a Vivid Land.
So Ifro's kind of playing a red-white giant style deck, although he does have blue. Notably, he has Kiki Jiki and Pestermite, so he can pull off the Infinite Tokens combo. We could see some true modern in action here. Ben,
Executioner's Captors from Ben Friedman.
All right, and we see.
Now, do you like playing out the capsule or holding it back as a trick?
I think I like playing it out a lot of the time, just because the mana. Just because you might want to curve out on a different turn. Playing it there is good, although you do have to be careful. Maybe someone is main decking a Corrosive Grip or something, but I feel pretty safe here. So Eric deployed a Blind Spot Giant, but no other Giants descended into the fray. He's got a Cloud Goat Ranger in his hand, but I think he's lacking the white to cast it.
He needs one more white mana. He's got the one he can make off the Vivid.
And there's the Moth Dust Changeling. Now, like I was saying earlier, that is a Giant. It's a little 1/1 Giant Shapeshifter, but the Changelings are holding the glue that kind of holds these tribal decks together.
Knowing that Ben has that Executioner's Capsule means Eric has to play around trying to turn on his Giant.
And so there's one of Ben's mini removal spells. He dragged down the Blind Spot Giant, sending it to an early grave. Looks like Ben's going to suspend a Giant Dusk Wasp rather than try and find another force to play it. Knowing when to suspend your cards I found to be really interesting in this format. Just like an original Time Spiral, when do you want to suspend? When do you want to hold back?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's math that comes into this because, when your creature comes off a suspend, or your spell comes off a suspend, you're getting the full spell for not actually paying any mana on this turn.
Right. And it has haste too, so we can get in the turn you play it. And we see Ben starting to assemble some of his mini Thalid Legions. There's the Thalid Germinator, right. And as we noted, he's got 3 Spore Sower Thalids, so he can definitely start hitting hard with the Thalid army. Eric cycles a Reach Through Mists. Draws an Apocryphite, which is a guy he can play, and, buy a little bit of time if Ben starts attacking him.
The Apocryphite's one of those inevitability cards.
Absolutely. Something I love about Apocryphite is it blocks on turn 2 or 3, buys you a little bit of time, but then just a win condition as the game goes on longer. It comes back as a 4/4 time and time again, and you have to think if you're Ben, do you want to risk turning on that Apocryphite? Maybe you want to hold it for a little while.
Right.
So we see Ben land cycle Fiery Fall here to find his 5th land.
Second forest for Ben Friedman. He went after that forest pretty fast, so he's got a plan.
Right, I mean, with 3 Spore Sower Thalids in his deck, I wouldn't be surprised if there was one hiding out in his hand right there. I haven't gotten a good glimpse of what's in Ben's hand, but, with 3 of them in his deck, there's a good chance. And I see a Trompe the Domains in Ben's hand, and that'll be a game ender at some point.
Well, again, that he can cast that if he wants the turn that the Wasp comes in.
Right, because all your mana is untapped. You're just ready and raring to go. So Eric has Electrolyze here. He's trying to figure out if he wants to take out that Germinator or not. Now, if you're Eric, you went down to 5 cards, so yeah, he jams the Electrolyze. I like that play. I think Eric is just trying to make sure he doesn't fall too far behind and make up some of the card loss he made by mulliganing so many times.
Well, he drops another mountain, and he's going to swing in with the
All right.
Apocker Sight and the Fairy.
So it's not a huge army, but it's still 2 points of damage, dropping Ben down to 17. The Apocker Sight gets in, the Changeling gets in. So Eric has a pretty good mix of all three of his colors, red, blue, and white. In white, he's got Bound in Silence, Cloud Goat Ranger, and Sanctum Gargoyle. In blue, he's got some Thirst for Knowledges, Latchkey Fairy, Pestermite. There's a Spore Sower, or
What's the other?
Spore Loth Ancient, I believe.
Spore Loth Ancient.
For Ben Friedman, which will once again start ticking up his thalids. And with the combination of Spore Sower and that can be quite solid. So Eric puts Thundering Giant in play, tapped and attacking, 4/3 haste. Eric says, you're going to have a hasty Dust Wasp. We'll have some
I'm going to have
haste
some
of my own.
Giants.
Yeah. All right.
All right, the Wasp flies.
Right.
And it's more sizable than the Changeling.
Absolutely. So the Changeling does have this interesting ability where you can tap a creature to give it flying, but you're not going to jump block here, so Ben just serves in for 3, drops Eric down to 17. Now, Ben's still sitting on the Executioner's Capsule. He could pull on the Thundering Giant if he needs to. And he probably has a Spore Sower here. Yep, and there's one of his 3 Spore Sower Thalids. And that card will just go crazy with the Spore Loth Ancient. I mean, Spore Sower or Thalid puts an extra counter on all your Thalids every turn. And the Spore Loth Ancient means you only have to take 2 off to pull to create a saproling. So with the Ancient and the Spore Sower in play, every turn you're getting a 1/1.
You're really speeding up the clock. And, oh, by the way, it's a 4/4.
Right, and it's a 4/4. And if he just wants to ride his Dust Wasp in the air, then he can just create a bunch of chump blockers potentially too. Although I think that there's a good chance we'll see Ben pull the trigger on that capsule to target the Giant here, just to kind of slow down the beating. But we'll see what Ben chooses to do. It's possible he might be worried about a bomb. That's how Eric could get back into the game.
Eric is at 17, Ben at 13. There's the capsule as predicted by Gavin.
All right.
We saw him deliberately tap his mana to leave the black up, so that was a little bit of a signal.
I think I see another Spore Sower in Ben's hand here, so things could get pretty nasty next turn. Ben's hand looks to be Spore Sower, Drag Down, and another card, so that's at least 2 solid cards. But Eric will make sure that he doesn't get that 1/1 every turn, and will Torn of Stone away the Spore Loth Ancient.
All right, Ben Friedman untaps.
Eric is kind of just wants to make sure that Ben's engine doesn't get rolling. You know, he's got some solid cards in his deck. He's got a Cloud Goat Ranger in his hand, but if that Saproling engine gets rolling, it's going to be bad news for Eric. So Eric is using his removal spells to make sure that he can shut down Ben's Saproling army. Plus, Ben is green, so there's always a chance of a Trompe the Domains, which he in fact has in his hand right now.
Oh, there's another one.
Yep, and there's the second Spore Sower.
It's a foiling one, isn't it?
Yeah, foily. So now all of Ben's Thalids will be getting 2 counters every turn, and it only takes 3 to make a Saproling, so it's a pretty good rate.
Yeah, that certainly significantly speeds up the clock. And again, like you said, he rides the flyer all the way through and just creates chump blocking with his Saproling army.
Right. Now, he doesn't exactly have a lot of chump block right now, the 1/1 Apocker Sight, the 1/1 Moth Dust Changeling, but if Eric does present a threat, if he finds the second white source for his Cloud Goat Ranger, if he lands an Aether Snipe or something, it could be important to be able to survive that on the backswing. So Eric's going to cycle his Fiery Fall, probably a little painful for Eric considering he's only 1 mana away from casting it, but he desperately needs that second white to cast that Cloud Goat Ranger.
Yeah, the thing about Cloud Goat Ranger, it's going to bring 3 friends with him.
Right. So that way, Eric can potentially have some blockers too. But also, the Cloud Goat Ranger can go into the air. So if the Dusk Wasp starts getting Eric down to a low life total, he can always tap the 3 Kithkin tokens, send the Cloud Goat Ranger upwards and block. Of course, what he doesn't know is Ben Friedman is sitting on another Drag Down in his hands. Ben's deck is full of removal spells. Okay, so there's a War Spike Changeling there for Eric Froelich. Another giant, quote unquote. And there we go. The Saproling Menace starts rearing up. 3 counters on one Spore Sower Thalid, 1 counter on the other Spore Sower Thalid, and he still has that Dust Wasp.
Actually, we'll pick you up on that option.
All right, Ben Friedman with 3 different lands in play for his domain on the drag down. That means he can give something -3, -3.
Right. So I think a question for Ben here. He's going to get in with the Dust Wasp for sure. But do you attack with those Spore Sower Thalids, and how many of them? And do you want to burn your drag down here?
Well, I mean, Eric is tapped out, so Ben can do pretty much what he wants. I mean, is Trompe the Domains basically a board sweeper here?
I mean,
if he casts it, does he force Eric into a situation where it's block unfavorably or die.
Yeah, I think I like trumping here. I mean, it would more or less demolish most of Eric's board, and it puts him to such a low life total that he has to do something pretty drastic on the next turn, and he only has a couple cards in his hand. But I think what Ben's going for is just going to be a little more patient with the Trump, force the double block, drag down one of them, and still evolve his creatures, and then the Trump is not only lethal next turn, but he'll have another creature from the saproling that he creates this turn. So either way, Ben Friedman's in really good shape, and Eric needs to draw something pretty strong to pull him out of this one. I mean, Trump the Domains is just such a powerful card.
Yeah, Cloud Goat Ranger seems like it's going to help here.
Oh, absolutely. Cloud Goat Ranger will help out a little bit. It'll create some guys to block on the ground. Of course, he can't tap the tokens to give it flying and block with the tokens.
Right.
But the fact that Ben has a Trump Domains, at least I'm pretty sure he does. It's possible I missaw it at some point.
Oh, Aether Snipe from Eric.
Okay, Aether Snipe.
It takes the flyer back.
Right, takes that Dusk Wasp out of the equation.
That changes the math a little bit, and
right,
Ben is indeed going to make a token at the end of his turn.
All right, so if Ben has Trump here, I think that's lethal, but we'll see if he actually has it or not. I'm fairly certain he did, but I could have seen a Dusk Wasp or a Spore Sword Thallid instead. They're all Time Spiral green commons or uncommons, you know, right? So. All right, so the Thallids continue to bump up their counters. Yeah, there's the Trump right there. He shovels it to the front of his hand. I think Ben has
he's
done
doing a little bit mad. You can
so that's 7, 7, and 4. Yep, he's like, all right, yep, that's it.
Here we come.
Yeah, Trump. I can hear the Magic Online sound effects playing in my head.
Trump and battle.
So Eric can soak up 5 points of the damage, but yeah, that's still going to be plenty lethal.
All right, we're going to go to game 2. Ben Friedman takes down game 1 from Eric Froelich in this round 6 action in the 5-0 bracket.
Right, 5-0 bracket. I mean, I like Ben's deck a lot. It's got the good green fatties we're talking about. You know, you have some great guys to beat down on. You've got the 3 Spore Sower Thallids. You've got the Sporloth Ancients. And then, of course, you've got Trump to finish it off. Plus, you just have this boatload of removal. I mean, he's got a Fiery Fall, or, you know, a pair of Fiery Falls, a couple Drag Downs, the Executioner's Capsule. And that's put Eric in a tight spot, especially when Eric has some more powerful creatures like Cloud Goat Ranger that he wants to land and kind of lean on a little bit.
Right.
But if he's always able to remove those, Eric's deck doesn't have a ton going on outside of that. Of course, he can always assemble Pestermite Kiki-Jiki if he gets the opportunity, which I would love to see on camera. That would be marvelous.
In a sealed deck, that would be pretty special to see. Do you think that there's the sort of seduction of going down too tricky a road when you're building a sealed deck in this format? You know, you got a lot of choices, you got a lot of really neat interactions, and you think there's a temptation when a player's building his deck to try to be too cute as opposed to solid strategy?
Absolutely. I looked at a lot of decks out there, and something consistent I saw is a lot of the really strong players went for consistent decks. Mm-hmm. The one decks would do the same thing over and over again. Like I looked at Sam Black's deck, and his deck is just 2 colors, super consistent. A lot of really good cards. Where I looked at some other players' decks who are certainly good players, but they're trying to do some cute themes, and where it really felt like their pools might have been better suited just to pick 2 colors, don't splash off your Vivids. Just instead of trying to go for the Rebels thing where you don't really have enough Rebels, you just play a lot more powerful cards. Of course, I think something that you'll see a lot in this format is with the green mana fixing, with Search for Tomorrow, with Kodama's Reach, with all the Vivid lands. Sometimes the right answer is just to play all your good cards. You play all your removal spells, you play your fatties, and you have your mana fixing to help you get there.
Well, we haven't seen a Bone Split. Did we see a Bone Splitter in either of these decks?
I don't think there's a Bone Splitter in either of these decks.
It's been the card of the format so far.
Also worth noting about Ben Friedman's deck is he has a Sword of Fire and Ice.
Oh my goodness.
That's quite good. He also has a Bone Splitter, so Ben does have a Bone Splitter. But on top of his already very strong deck, he's got a Sword of Fire and Ice. I didn't even see it. It was just nestled off in the artifact corner here. But that's quite good. And Marshall and I were actually just talking at the end of the last round about what our best rares you want to open in this format are. I talked to some of the pros about it, and they mentioned several. They mentioned Una, Moloku, Elspeth, but they all came with the caveat after the swords, of course. The swords are...
They make anything, even one of those saprolings, just way better.
Absolutely. I mean, they not only turn a saproling. Let's take a saproling as our example. They turn it into a 3/3. They give it protection from 2 colors.
Right.
And they have awesome trigger effects. Sword of Fire and Ice deals 2 damage and draws you a card, which is obviously awesome. It's a removal spell. It draws you a card on top of that, and it's an artifact. So and it only costs 5, so you don't have to worry about any mana commitments to play it. You know, if
Right.
the mana's a little shaky, you can still get it out there. You can equip, pay 3 and then 2 more to equip it on the same
Yeah.
turn. You play your 4-drop Thallid maybe. You equip it the next turn. Your opponent doesn't see it coming. You can pick off their guy. I mean, the swords are just so strong in this format.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, Light and Shadow protects you from most of the good removal in the format. There's a lot of good black and a lot of good white removal in the format. I mean, it leaves you open to the red, but you got to if you're, especially if you're playing against the Rebel deck, it's just so much of a house.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so we're off to the races again. Eric leads off of Vivid Crab, and they both kept 7 cards, so we'll see if his mana's a little better.
Thallid for Ben Friedman on turn 1, and speaking of being off to the races.
Right, yeah, good old Thallid, the little 1/1-for-1 that could, from many years ago, reprinted on the Time Spiral bonus sheet. Now it's back once again in Modern Masters with brand kicking new art. How about that?
5.
So turn 2, there's Aaron Ephemeron.
Ephemeron.
I talked to a lot of pros. They felt like Ephemeron was the best common, or at least one of the best commons in the format, and it's pretty easy to see why once you play it against it. You play it for 2 mana, you get this huge 4/4 flyer with haste later in the game.
Right.
Eric, of course,
Electrolyzes
yeah.
the Thallid and 1 to Ben's head.
16.
Electrolyzers seem to be so good. There's a lot of good 1-toughness creatures in this format, especially in the aggressive decks. And Electrolyze is such a strong value play. You're, getting a 2-for-1, maybe even a 3-for-1, like we saw LSV do last round. So it looks like Ben's hand. Okay, he's got a Kitchen Finks, another really strong card. So Ben's hand has like an Aether Snipe. He's got a Traumatic Visions to land cycle or a counter if he needs to.
Cycle for Eric Froelich. Plays another Vivid Land, and Apocryphite. So he's got the mana he basically wants.
Right.
But he's going to be facing down next turn. He's going to be facing down the Kitchen Finks and the Ephemeron.
2 turns from now. But still, I mean, in a couple turns you'll have that.
Oh, that's 2. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it looks like 1.
The dice can be a little tricky to see sometimes, but yeah, I mean, still 2 turns away from that Ephemeron, and that's a 4/4 with haste.
Yeah, there's the giant wasp as well.
Right, and so his hand looks like to be Executioner's Capsule, Giant Dust Wasp, Aether Snipe, and one other card I can't quite make out. Traumatic Visions, which he could land cycle here for a land if he wanted to ensure he could cast the Dusk Wasp next turn.
And he can't play the capsule because he has no black. He's just got blue and green right now.
Right, correct.
So back to Eric Froelich, drops his 5th land and passes the turn. And you're right. I think that's what Ben is going to do. He's going to land cycle that.
Right. So you go and find the land, probably a swamp here,
probably a swamp.
and then you untap and you think you cast the Dusk Wasp, which means that on the turn after you'll 7 points of flying power to serve in with, provided Eric doesn't have any tricks of his own. Now Eric's deck does have some some pretty solid removal spells, and I think I saw a Fiery Fall floating around his hand earlier, and he's got 2 Torrent of Stones, both of which could take care of either of the flyers.
Right.
So the Ephemeron ticks down to 1 counter, and that's the moment of trepidation. You're like, oh man, 1 counter, next turn is coming in.
Okay, so there's the swamp from Ben Friedman, and there's the Giant Dust Wasp.
Yep, exactly. And notice how Ben isn't attacking with the Finks here. I think a lot of players would be attacking with that Finks, but Ben just knows that Apocryphite is really powerful. He doesn't want it to get up to the 4/4 status, and he's perfectly content just leaving the Finks back.
Yeah, you don't want to turn that thing on because then it beats you in the head.
Right. I played a lot with Apocryphite. I mean, it's actually one of my favorite cards from Time Spiral block, and it's so easy to think you can just attack into it, but it's quite a risk you make. So here comes Ephemeron for Ben Friedman.
No play for Eric Froelich there. So you got to believe he's holding something.
And holding something indeed, 2 Torrent of Stone. So he's going to cast 1 Torrent on the Ephemeron and sack 2 Forests to splice it onto the Giant Dust Wasp. Now that sends Eric back a little mana development, but 2 of Ben's best cards on the table just evaporated, and Eric still has that other Torrent in his hands.
Wow, big play from Eric Froelich.
Right.
He's certainly waiting in the weeds for that.
Yes, absolutely. So now Eric still has the 4 mana he needs to cast the next Torrent, just in case. Ben has another big creature. I know he has that Aether Snipe, for example, that he might end up torrenting down. So we see a 6th mana for Ben Friedman here. And is it Aether Snipe? Could be Aether Snipe.
Could be Aether Snipe and just and bounce the Apocryphite, just start battling.
Eric is holding 2 cards there. I kind of feel like if at this point Ben is sort of the beatdown player. He knows Eric has a removal spell in his hand, and he's got 2 reasonable creatures plus all his 4/4s in his deck.
He's just going to hard cast Search for Tomorrow.
All right, so Search is going off, and there you see the sword as he's searching through his deck. And here comes Executioner's Capsule. So Ben can kind of prepare and set up for the next turn. Note that Swamp is really important, and playing the Executioner's Capsule here is really important, because Ben is just touching black mana, so he wants to make sure he has untapped mana available for if he needs to kill a creature.
Right.
That's why in his deck especially, playing it out is playing out the capsule instead of holding it back is really important. Because otherwise, he doesn't have a second swamp to go get.
A second swamp, right?
Or yes, he has 2 swamps. He could get a second one if he really needed to. But note that Ben sideboarded in that plains. So I don't know if he just felt like he needed to trump for more, or if there was a white card he sideboarded in. I guess we'll find out.
Thirst for Knowledge from Eric Froelich.
And as you guys saw on the slides earlier, Thirst is one of the premier card drawing spells of this format.
Yeah, Marshall and I were talking about we both were like, I'm not sure that was, it was one of the top 5 cards, and we were like, I'm not sure how to put it there.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very good in the artifacts deck where it's, draw 3, discard 1. But in the control decks, it's not quite as good, but they still play some artifacts. You can see the Poker Site here. We saw last round LSV had a bunch of artifacts.
Right.
And just drawing those cards and pitching lands can be really strong, finding more gas.
Yeah.
And Eric has 2 copies in his deck.
Okay, Sports Hour with Alad for Ben Friedman after attacking with the Kitchen Finks. Efro has blocked the Poker Site, send it to the suspend zone, and here's Cloud Goat Ranger.
All right, Goat Bah. There's the Ranger himself, the giant.
Guys.
Now, Ben does have that Executioner's Capsule, which he's probably going to crack to kill the Ranger. And like I said, Ben is kind of the beatdown player in this situation. And I think he knows that Eric has a Torn in his hand, and he just wants to attack and start wearing down Eric's resources, especially if Ben has Trump that he's going for or a sword that he's going for.
Yeah, he's going to be careful not to lose his Thalid, but...
So Eric puts 2 Kithrin Soldiers on the Kitchen Finks. That's a play we've seen since Lorwyn blocked. People were doing that. Lorwyn block constructed. You use 2 tokens to block the Kitchen Finks, and then you use the last one to block the
persistent version.
The persistent version, exactly. So do you think it will see Ben Aether Sniper up that Kithkin Soldier here?
Maybe.
I like the play. We'll see if that's what Ben chooses to do. I mean, I can understand you wanting to hold it for something else, but I certainly like just continuing to put on pressure. You know that Eric has that Torrent of Stone.
Right.
Yeah, and there it is.
Aether Snipe on the token. That means it's away for good, and he's gonna get in with the Spore Sower.
Right.
It should drop. Let's get the a corrected life total there because I don't think 2319 is right.
Right.
Okay. Now we got Eric dropped down to 15.
It's always good to have Judge Sheldon Menery on the case for these matches. All right, so there's the Torn of Stone taking out the Spore Sower, Thalid.
Yeah, you just can't let and there's the Spell Bomb taking out the Kitchen Finks.
Right, and now Ben's got to be really glad he played that Aether Snipe because he's got this 4/4. He wasted 2 of Eric's removal spells, but can still serve in for 4.
Right.
Now notice that a Pocket Sight comes in next turn. I understand that Ben probably, he's probably thinking last turn, okay, did he want to play it or save it for the Apocalypse Sight?
Right.
I still like playing the Aether Snipe there, but the Apocalypse Sight, like I said earlier, is going to cause some big damage here. A 4/4 that can block the Aether Snipe profitably and then come back again. So Ben really can't attack with that Aether Snipe here. He needs to find an answer to get past that Apocalypse Sight.
Some of his good removal. There's another Spore Sower.
There's the Spore Sower Thalid.
Yeah, I think we're going to, especially if this goes 3 games, we're going to say Spore Sower Thalid a lot.
Yes, oh, absolutely. 3 copies in Ben's deck. Okay, and Eric is like, I will have none of this Thalid nonsense. Let me Fiery Fall it right away. I think Eric also just drew Thundering Giant.
He did.
Might be time to turn the tides and start turning Eric's creature sideways. Yep, just tapped and attacking right in the red zone. My favorite way to cast Thundering Giant. All right, and so Ben had the drag down, uses it just to get that guy out of the way.
And that's for 4 now, because Ben has all the lands except for a mountain.
Right, and that could be why Ben sideboarded in that plains, just to make his drag down sit for an extra. All right, so Ben casts Search for Tomorrow. Doesn't do a ton, but does thin his deck out a little bit, 1 less land you can draw.
Yep, there's a forest that he puts into play.
And now we're kind of in a stalemate situation. I mean, they both have 4/4s. Ben can't really attack because he doesn't want to trade without a Pocket Sight. So the top of their decks are going to matter a lot here. And speaking of top of decks, Eric has Thirst for Knowledge in his hand right now. That's going to give him 3 more looks at the top of his deck, and he even has an Aether Spellbomb to discard. This could be a huge value play for Eric Froelich.
Yep. There it is. He didn't give us a good look at what he drew. I think a mountain was in there.
Yeah,
we see a
mountain and a
plains.
I think he drew 2 lands and a spell. I'm not sure what the spell is. But he's pondering as if he wants to pitch that Aether Spellbomb or not. I can also see just pitching the 2 lands. It's always tempting to go for max value on and he pitches the 2 lands. It's always tempting to go for max value on the Spellbomb, but he doesn't really need his 7th and 8th land. So he just leaves the Spellbomb for a rainy day and pitches those lands away.
All right, Ben Friedman doing a little bit of counting.
Vivid Grove. Not what Ben wanted to draw there. Eric draws another land, I think. So I think we're still in the stalemate situation. The top of their decks are going to matter a lot.
Yeah. Ben Friedman, of course, part of that great collection of relatively young players with Jason Ford and Matt Costa. You guys play together, have had a great deal of success together.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've really upped the game.
And talking to Jason and Matt, who both won GPs, they're like, Ben Friedman's the best player among us.
I mean, Ben's done a lot of great things in the short time he's been playing, and see if he continues it here. So Eric plays the Aether Snipe to bounce Ben's Aether Snipe, and then Ben takes the opportunity to say, all right, well, I'll replay my Aether Snipe, but I'll bounce your Apocryphite to stop the 4/4 shenanigans you've got going on there. And then Ben happily trades off Aether Snipes with Eric. So when the dust all settles, Eric has a Warspike Changeling and an Apocryphite, and now Ben needs to find some action, and fast.
Very fast.
Well, Ben is sitting at 19 life, but that 4 damage from Eric is going to start adding up really fast if he doesn't find something to do with it. Now, Ben does have a lot of good stuff in his deck. He could draw an Air Ephemeron, he could draw another Spore Sower Thallid, both of those which are 4/4s that could block that Warspike Changeling. Eric does have an Aether Spellbomb to tempo a little bit too, though.
Okay, his attack drops Ben Friedman down to 15. He's just going to cycle it.
I think is that a Blind Spot Giant Eric just drew?
It was red.
Yep, so I think we're going to see that Giant and start applying even more pressure.
Oh,
all right, so there's 8 points of power on the table. So Ben draws a Spore Loth Ancient, which will hold off that Warspike Changeling. The Blind Spot Giant will probably still get it in there. I'm sure that's a trade Eric's happy to make. Or not sure, but I think there's a good chance he's happy to make that trade. Yeah, and so he serves him with the Blind Spot Giant. I think Ben will likely take the damage here, especially because he can start making tokens every other turn to block if he needs to. But we'll see what happens. And yeah, he just takes the damage.
Okay, Ben Friedman down to 11, Eric Froelich also to 11. There's a Latchkey Fairy for Eric Froelich.
Hard cast, Blind Spot Giant, not a rogue, so.
Yeah.
All right,
There's the counter on the Ancient.
And
Ben Friedman, it looked like he didn't draw any action.
I think he found, all right, there's one of his mini Spore Sower Thallids. Now that'll start doing some work. Once again, we saw this engine last game. The Spore Sower puts another counter on all your guys, and the Ancient makes it, you only have to pull off 2 to make a Fungus. So if Ben gets to untap with both next turn, he can already make one little saproling guy, but I think he might just have to throw away his, yeah, and he does. He trades the Spore Sower Thallid for the Blind Spot Giant just to stop the pressure hitting on him.
Yeah, he didn't really have the luxury of time to build the saproling army.
He could have taken the hit, but that Latchy Fairy in the air would just probably finish Ben off if he didn't find his Ephemeron or a removal spell.
Well, I mean, he's got to have he's got to think that there's a reasonably good chance that Eric has a Bone Splitter, so that 1 turns into 3 pretty fast, and already being at 8.
Oh, now that is
Witness.
a good draw for Ben Friedman there. Eternal Witness gives him any card in his graveyard he wants back. The only question is, which one do you choose with this many options?
Oh, man. There's no Cryptic Command, right?
So you can bring back the Ephemeron. No, he just goes for Aether Snipe. Perfectly good choice.
Oh, he's got the mana.
Yep, and that'll probably come down and bounce the... he could bounce the Eternal Witness if you wanted to. If you really want to go for the long game value play. How do you like that, Sheldon?
It's techie.
There it is.
Ben Friedman's going to do it.
A little cute, but pretty good. You pick up your own Eternal Witness, and then next turn you can bring back the Drag Down. It costs him 3 points of life to do this, but for the 4/4, that seems absolutely worth it to me.
Yeah.
And then next turn he can play the Witness again, bring back a Drag Down to kill off that Latchkey Fairy, or an Ephemeron if it feels like Eric doesn't have a removal spell and it'll be okay to block. I love those kind of plays, they're the things you don't always see but are really awesome to do, and that's certainly one of them. All right, so Eric serves in to Ben, drops Ben down to 5. All right, now Ben's got the gas. The only question is, can he survive Eric's flyer? And with that Eternal Witness, I think he's going to be able to bring back that Drag Down and deal with the 3/1. We'll see what he chooses to do here. Oh, it looks like he drew a Drag Down this turn, meaning that Latchkey Fairy could be disassembled soon without the Witness's help.
So he drags down the Latchkey. Ben's at 5 life, so he's got to be a little careful.
Right. I'm looking at what's in Eric's deck. I mean, he's got that Kiki Jiki, which is of course good that he could draw. That would be able to potentially push some damage through if he somewhere, or just combo kill with the Pestermite once again. But
Acrosite blocks the Aether Snipe, so it's going to go away with 3 time counters on it.
So Eric's deck doesn't have a ton of reach in the form of direct damage to players. Ben doesn't know this obviously, but if Ben's able to gum up the board, Eric could be in a really, really rough spot. So it looks like Eternal Witness is going to come down. And what do we think we'll see him bring back here? So many options. You can get back the Ephemeron or the Drag Down or the Traumatic Visions. Okay, so Ben feels like he's got a good chance as long as he gums up the board and if the game goes long. Plus, Ben's got Tromp in his deck, so all he wants to do is buy time.
To get into the Trump and Trump over.
Right, exactly. So he has the Drag Down to kill the Latchkey Fairy. He's got the Traumatic Visions for whatever Eric draws, or even that Apocryphite if he feels is necessary. Although I think the Saprolings will be able to block the Apocryphite just fine.
Right.
And so now Ben is just kind of waiting to find something to push him through. And between his Tromp and his Saproling army he could draw another Spore Sower Thallid, for example. Ben definitely has inevitability here. But if Eric draws a couple running good spells, then it's going to be bad news for Ben Friedman, because he can only counter one of them. And if he drags down the Fairy here, which I think he's going to do, then Eric could potentially push through something really strong.
All right, let's see. The Latchkey Fairy gets in. I think Eric Froelich, who's pretty good at reading other players, has the read on the drag down.
Right.
Or the removal.
I think the fact that Ben didn't bring back a removal spell is a pretty good indicator that he's got one in his hand right now. And I think if you're Ben, you have to do it here, and he does. You can't afford to take 3, especially when there's Glacial Ray, Pyrite, Spellbomb, any number of things which could deal those final 2 points of damage to you in the format.
All right, this has been a pretty swingy game here in Game 2. I'll remind you, Ben Friedman is up 1-0 in this match. 2 great players in the 5-0 bracket.
Yeah. This is some great Magic we're seeing played here.
Yeah.
Glenlander Archmage.
Oh,
now that is going to
goodness.
do some damage. That'll, not literal damage to Eric Frolich's face, although it'll do that too, but also just countering any non-creature spells Eric was planning to use. And Ben's like, all right, let's get in the red zone, Swirloth Ancient, Aether Snipe, get in there. I've got some perfectly good blockers now.
Yeah, if you don't, if he doesn't chump here, he's taking 8, which will drop him to 3. Now he's not worried about burn, obviously.
Although you never know, Ben has that Vivid Grove, and he's playing a bunch of colors, so it's not completely off the table, but it's pretty unlikely. I think Eric wouldn't really play around it here. But that Glenlander Archmage is going to cause a lot of headaches for Eric Froelich, because any spell Eric could draw that would kill one of Ben's creatures and kind of get back in the game can be simply negated for a simple blue mana.
Right.
Glenlander Archmage is a constructed all-star, and it's doing good work here on the limited tables as well.
Certainly is.
Let's see what Eric chooses to do. He taps 3 mana, maybe another Thirst for Knowledge? Or Pestermite. All right.
There's the Pestermite.
Now, if Eric draws a Kiki Jiki, I don't think Ben has a removal spell. If Eric draws a Kiki Jiki here, he could make Infinity Fairies and finish off Ben. Because neither of those is a non-creature spell. That would be incredible if that were to happen. We'll see if that's actually what goes down. So Eric taps the Glenlander Archmage, so the Pestermite can get in for 2.
All right, Eric Froelich at 3, Ben Friedman at 5. We're in a relatively tight Game 2.
There it is!
Kiki Pestermite on the board!
And there's the Traumatic Visions we knew he had. So much for that.
Yeah. All right, Eric Froelich scoops him up. He had it. It was there. We almost got to see it.
Right. I was really excited because he had it and he drew it. It was a super exciting moment. Of course, Ben had brought back that Traumatic Visions a couple turns ago. Didn't matter. Although, it's still cool that Eric got to show it off.
All right, Ben Friedman takes down Eric Froelich 2-0 here in round 6 action in Grand Prix.